There are so many incredible moments in Marvel canon. But if I told you about the time that Thor defeated the Marauders? Wait, isn't that just the Mutant Massacre? Oh. Okay. Hello everybody and welcome to another installment of my infinitely long series where I play Marvel Champions, a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games, and prove that my favorite hero, Thor, is technically capable of defeating every villain in the game. In the interest of trying to keep everything fresh, I've decided that I'm going to jump ahead a bit and work on the first two scenarios of the next evolution box, Morlock Siege and On the Run. The first is a twist on the multi-villain scenario that we've seen in the past with a replayability enabling twist that takes on 3 of the 6 Marauders in each attempt. What I like about this setup is that it provides a lot of variability to how the scenario goes. You may find yourself going up against a villain that your deck is prepared to handle, and then suddenly you swing into a villain that your deck is wildly unprepared for. For this scenario, I immediately wanted to go with a Thor aggression deck. I think that it's entirely realistic that we can race through the scenario and not allow the second scheme to accrue much threat at all. Not to mention the fact that the next evolution wave gave aggression cards such as the direct approach and the assault keyword, which allows thwarting to occur through the attack stat. But we will definitely be seeing the second main scheme, as the first will resolve itself regardless of how much threat is on it within 3 turns. The first point of business in this multi-villain scenario is to randomize the Marauders into a villain deck, with the top character acting as the current opponent. For this first attempt, we'll be starting with Riptide. I'm honestly 50-50 on this result, as Riptide's attack trigger either adds 2 threat to the main scheme and any side schemes, or he gets 2 additional attack points. The first main scheme cares a lot about threat, but if we can mitigate threat in the first 2 turns, we can soften Riptide's effect on the game and add threat with little hesitation. I set the villain health to 9, then draw my opening hand of Power of Aggression, Limitless Stamina, Piercing Strike, 4 Asgard, and Defender of the 9 Realms. With the low health thresholds of the villains, I opt to keep Power of Aggression and Piercing Strike, as that represents a third of Riptide's health and an attack of a hammer-clad Thor. From there, I mulligan into Bring It, God of Thunder, and Asgard. This honestly feels like a great opening hand, because once I go at Mjolnir, I can afford to play out God of Thunder into Mjolnir and then take Riptide down to 3 hit points. Content with my first turn, I ready up and draw into Blood Rage, Lightning Strike, Piercing Strike, Keep Them Busy, and Hammer Throw. This leaves me with a bit of a conundrum. As I previously stated, if I have a way to mitigate the threat on the main scheme, I was going to allow Riptide to just accrue some extra threat with no hesitation. But looking at my hand now, I have to wonder if the right call might be to just race the scenario and not worry about if the main scheme is going to accrue 6 threat before the 3rd knock counter goes on. As such, I place the required threat and the knock counter on the main scheme, and then elect for Riptide to add 2 additional threat, putting us at 4 of 6 for the first main scheme. The boost card is only for 1, so I get through the attack with 12 health. And my encounter card is bolstered by Wrath, which does something, but because Riptide is only at 3 health and he's about to be defeated, I'm not really that concerned. On my turn, I play out Keep Them Busy, a player side scheme that can be thwarted with the attack stat, and is strictly here in case the game goes long and I need to take care of the next main scheme. Then I play out Blood Rage, seeing as an enemy is about to be defeated by a basic attack. I defeat Riptide, tossing him under the routed environment, and see that the next villain is Vertigo. I resolve Blood Rage, taking a damage, and drawing Endurance, which I play, setting my life total back to 14. I ready, drawing into a second copy of Hammer Throw, Power of Aggression, and the 3rd copy of Hammer Throw. Suddenly, keeping that Hammer Throw that I thought would be a nice backup plan is coming to bite me. This is not a dead hand, but my next turn is going to be pretty limited. The main scheme goes up to 5 of 6, and the second knock counter gets added. I choose to have Vertigo gain 2 attack points, and have a single boost icon, taking 3 damage, going down to 11 hit points. I struggle to remember that attachments fall off the villain in this context, and my encounter card is Grey Crow. Thor's Have At the ability then draws me into Piercing Strike and the Direct Approach. I have to consider my options here, because I don't want to needlessly take a lot of retaliate damage, but because Mjolnir will be returned to my hand when I play Hammer Throw, I need to be able to get enough damage through with Hammer Throw to still be able to activate Blood Rage afterwards. Despite it not being the most optimal play, I elect to make a basic attack against Vertigo and then Hammer Throw with 4 damage carrying over to the villain, ultimately defeating Vertigo with Piercing Strike. No Blood Rage this turn. We place the villain under Routed, and the last hurdle in this encounter will be Arclight. I play Mjolnir back out and accept that the main scheme will advance due to threat and not knock counters. I get 2 Morlock allies, but they will not be getting the tough status counters. And with that, we have another loose condition in play. We must protect the Morlocks. I clean up my turn, flipping into Alter Ego, drawing into Defender of the Nine Realms, Limitless Stamina, Lady Sif, another Defender of the Nine Realms, and Energy. Astute viewers will notice that had I just sequenced my plays differently and was able to draw a card off of Blood Rage, I would have gotten Defender of the Nine Realms, I would have thwarted the main scheme, and my Morlocks would have come into play with tough status counters. I'm hoping that is not an omen of things to come. Please don't look at the runtime. Arclight schemes for 2, and my encounter card is Sinister Strike, the standard 3 version of Assault, placing a pursuit counter on Pursued by the Past and surging into Hide, which places a tough status counter on a Morlock before surging into Titanium Exoskeleton, armoring up the villain and likely prolonging the scenario by at least a full turn. On my turn, I play Defender of the Nine Realms, discarding off the top of the encounter deck until I find Vertigo. Then I clear the main scheme and draw into Bring It and Combat Training off of Have At Thee. I take the extra card draw off of Bring It to find God of Thunder and use 3 energy resources from my hand to discard Titanium Exoskeleton. I attack Vertigo down to 3 and play out Lady Sif. I then burn the tough status counter on my Morlock to defeat Vertigo and elect to thwart the player's side scheme down to a safe 1 before a readied Thor attacks Arclight down to 7. I refresh my board and draw into Hall of Heroes, Precision Strike, Lightning Strike, and Legion. In the villain phase, I allow Lady Sif to get a confused status and block for the Morlock, ultimately taking 2 damage. My encounter card is Alliance of Evil, which will push Pursuit to the Past to summon my Nemesis kit. Under different circumstances, this could be a huge wrench in my plans, but we're in the twilight turns of the game, so Loki being in play doesn't even change what choices I'm making going forward. Have At Thee draws me into Precision Strike and Quinn Carrier, and I pause for a second just to make sure that there is nothing standing in my way. And I confirm that I am able to play Precision Strike twice at the villain, attack with Lady Sif, and defeat her with a Morlock, completing a definitively accurate reenactment of the Mutant Massacre. All right, we did it. I'm so happy to say that we were able to do that in 1 attempt. So now what do? I guess the only option is double feature. It's time for Valkyrie. Valkyrie's gimmick is that she has the Death Glow, which she can attach to an enemy. She then gets different bonuses from her kit when used against that enemy. And if that enemy is ultimately defeated by her, she readies right back up. She may not be as well equipped to fight the Marauders as Thor was, but I think the addition of Suppression Fire and Surprise Move from the Iceman pack will be a definite boon for her. Starting up another attempt, I randomize the Marauders, and Vertigo is my first opponent this go around. My opening hand is Suppression Fire, Power of Aggression, Genius, Keep Up the Pressure, Shield Maiden, and Martial Prowess. I am very happy to see Martial Prowess, as it will act as a resource outlet from turn 1. Genius is always nice to see, and Suppression Fire will act as a nice alternative way to get an attachment onto an enemy. Though I will admit that being limited to a minion was not something that I factored in when I was evaluating this opening hand. I elect to save Suppression Fire power of aggression, genius, and martial prowess, replacing my mulligan with strength and no quarter. On my turn, I play out martial prowess and attach the death blow to Vertigo and attack for 2, putting the villain down to 7. After some thought, I forego the additional text on no quarter for long-term card advantage, leaving Vertigo at 3 hit points before readying up and drawing Surprise Move, Aragorn, Suppression Fire, and another Surprise Move. During the villain phase, we resolve the threat and the knock counter. Then I give Vertigo the extra attack points and the boost is 1, with an additional overkill that is inconsequential. My encounter card is back in action, giving the villain a tough status and no extra threat because no one has been routed yet. On my turn, I play out Aragorn, going up to 13 hit points. I remove the tough status from the villain, and then I pass my turn, discarding Suppressing Fire and a copy of Surprise Move, drawing into Have at Thee, Take That, Chooser of the Slain, and Surprise Move. Beyond the redundant copy of Surprise Move, I'm a little unhappy to see Have at Thee and Take That both coming at the same time, because while not the same, they're kind of redundant copies of each other, which does give Valkyrie some consistency. I just don't need this right now. During the villain phase, I give Vertigo the additional 2 attack again and get away with only 3 damage off the boost card. Then the encounter card is bolstered by Wrath. Well timed in my favor again. On my turn, I pump up Valkyrie's damage with a surprising move, defeating Valkyrie and uncovering Greycrow. But fear not, I have a plan. I throw Have at Thee at the villain for 7 damage, and since Deathglow readied up Valkyrie, I take out Greycrow with a basic attack. Pop, pop! Our last villain will be Arclight. I ready and draw into Suppressing Fire, No Quarter, Flight of the Valkyrier, Abigail Riggs, and Visit Valhalla. On the villain phase, knock counters push us into the second main scheme, and I get 2 Morlock allies, with tough status counters this time. At this point, I make a small mistake and have Arclight scheme for 4. Probably because I internally thought to myself, I'm going to change to Alter Ego so I can get that sweet, sweet card advantage because the main scheme is going to flip over anyway. But I didn't do that. And luckily, because of tough status counters, we're going to be able to fix this board state in a second. We'll get to that. My encounter card is Harpoon, a guard minion, acting as one more step in my ascension to glory. On my turn, I attach the death blow to Harpoon, making a basic attack before playing Suppression Fire and No Quarter. I recover 2 damage and discard the top 2 cards of my deck, recovering Jane Foster Thor. The death blow readies up Valkyrie, and then I attach it to Arclight, attack her for 2, and bring her to 8 hit points. I ready up and draw into Angela, Hall of Heroes, Energy, and Have at Thee. At this point, I realize the scheming mistake and correct the threat on the main scheme, and remove a tough status from one of my Morlocks because it would have been the one getting the attack. Arclight gets an additional 2 attack points, and Hide is the boost card, giving a Morlock a tough status and surging into 3 more boost icons. They're all absorbed by the tough status. Lastly, my encounter card is Inhibitor Caller, blanking my text box and lowering my attack. I simply exhaust a Morlock, discarding the collar before playing Have at Thee and making a basic attack to put Arclight into the stack of defeated villains, ending the Morlock siege for a second time. And there we have it. We've defeated the scenario twice, all in one video. I think that there is a lesson that we can take from all this because we got to see both versions of how this scenario can play out. One with tough status counters and one without. In a multiplayer situation, you probably do want to protect your allies at all costs so that you can play for that longer game. The scenario is just longer. But in a single player scenario, I would really advise considering if trying to maximize every aspect of a scenario is standing in your way of just clearing the objective. I ran into this when I first beat Claw, just as a rinky-dink player. I was so concentrated on trying to keep every Master of Evil in check that I completely put on blinders and was not defeating Claw. And then I had that level up moment where I went, hey, this 9 damage that I'm about to deal to Whirlwind, maybe that could go at Claw, who's currently at 7 health. It seems so obvious now, and it felt so obvious in the moment, but when I was wrapped up in trying to min-max everything, I was just completely blind to the obvious answer to the situation. I have had so much fun with this scenario in these two games, particularly that moment defeating Greyclaw. That was awesome. It has ignited my love of the Asgard heroes in a way that I think I just sort of like lost because there was so much time in between the first run of Asgard versus the Universe and this. But I know that On the Run, which is going to be the next episode, is going to be a little bit different. I don't know that aggression is going to be the right call, but that's going to be a journey that we're going to go on together. I would fully expect that there will be multiple attempts. But until next time, I will hopefully see you sooner rather than later. I appreciate everybody for watching, and I will catch you next time.